Okay, here we are again. A little later than normal, but I wanted to pop on. I wanted to talk about 2023 energy, so that is what we're going to do. I don't even know where I want to start, because I normally don't want to do these. 2023. And we're going to talk a little bit about closing out 2022, because a lot of people think that 2022 energy is closed out by some magical linear way December 31st, right? Like 2022 is over and now we're going to move to 2023. It's a very human linear way to think about it, right? That 2023 is coming and everything's done. Everything's going to be all new. There's no old coming over. What we need to do is start shifting that a little bit and start thinking about it energetically. So what you will notice, usually from the Lion's Gate, which is 8/8, on really until, for me, March, around the spring equinox, you are getting in 2023 codes and you are closing out 2022. So that's always going to be, well, I guess there's never an always, but for me this pattern normally holds true. You're still going to be closing out 2022 energy going into 2023. That's why a lot of people get super tired this time of year. They're super tired and they always blame it on the holidays and all the prep work for, you know, all the kind of human holidays we had to do and all the stuff we had to do to get ready for the new year. But it's tiring because you're getting in a lot of codes, whether you're getting them consciously or you're getting them unconsciously. If you're still working more predominantly from a human consciousness, you're going to be getting them unconsciously. Everyone gets the same kind of download every year about what you're going to be doing the next year. You're just either going to be following a human template or you're going to be following a higher consciousness template, right? But you still have some kind of cadence to it. There's still a roadmap going on. Sometimes you'll know things coming in advance. Even in your human consciousness, I still feel like you get that in a sense. Sometimes people call them more like warnings. You know, they'll kind of get that all of a sudden, bam, they just dream about something happening. And it might be deemed as something traumatic for a human, but it's also preparing you for something that could occur, so you will be prepared. So you start getting ready for those things when you're in your human consciousness. You're connecting up more in your sleep state, right? So you're getting prepared for these things. You're energetically cutting cords to people in an area if you feel like you're going to be moving. If you feel like someone's going to be leaving your life, whether it be through a transition of death or whether it be through something else, you'll just kind of have an idea that people are going to be leaving, right? And you're cutting cords in your sleep to prepare for that. So there's a lot of times when the calendar shifts, even though we don't do linear in higher consciousness realities, we do linear in a sense because there is a pattern to a year. You're going to have a theme to every year you do. There's just not a 100% cutoff on what the new theme is going to be. It doesn't end December 31st. And that's one of the human things that we all kind of wanted to believe, right? That December 31st, everything was going to change. But if we don't facilitate the change, then nothing's going to change. That's why we relive the same year again. And we go through our human loop cycles. Technically, you can't ever relive it again because you're always going to be in a higher frequency than you were before. So you're always going to be in a different tick in a sense. You're going to be ticking up, even if it's really teeny amounts. But it can feel the same because you're still playing in the program, clearing the same program, just at a different depth of that human program. You're still working through something. So that's why a lot of times we'll get into the same relationship again in the new year. Even if it's with a new person, we'll go back with an old person. We'll stay in the same area again, even though we kind of know we want to move. Because even in our human consciousness, I know I touched on this, but I want to just kind of touch on it again. You're going to usually see some stuff in advance. Everyone dreams precognitive, okay? You don't dream the past. You're always dreaming multidimensional. You might not be in the consciousness yet to have enough connection to see everything. We're never going to really see everything, but your sight will increase as you expand. And the more you expand, the more you're going to be able to see. When you get into higher, oh, sorry, refrigerator's beeping. Oh, it's because I left it open. I'll be right back. Hold on. Smart appliances. Okay, for who the bell tolled. I forgot where I was now. Okay, I totally forgot where I was. Sometimes I think it's better to do these videos when I'm a little earlier in the day, but this is the time I had, so. Okay, so let me see if I can hit it again, where I was. When we're talking about higher consciousness realities and being able to kind of see where we're going, you're going to have a lot more farsight's not even a word. You're going to have a lot more sight out. And there is a word for that, and I cannot, maybe it is farsight. You're going to see farther out, right? Like you might know, you might get an inkling that, oh, this place is too small. You know, I'm going to need to shift locations. I'm going to need to leave. This location is too dense. My body needs to raise. Our body's going to want to move around because it has to drop density. If you keep your body setting in the same place for all the time, as far as where you're living, your body density gets to a certain thing. It gets kind of in a set point. And unless you move your body around and move to a different location, live in a different location, even going to different places helps to an extent, but really where you're living and sleeping is kind of going to ground you as far as the density goes. And you're kind of going to be stuck there. And there are going to be certain parts of this process where you're going to have to leave to shake that density and to lighten the body up. So you might feel very strongly. You know, I know there's been sometimes I knew something was coming very strongly. I knew I'd be leaving at a certain time. I knew I'd be exiting an area at a certain time. Now my time came earlier because there were some other soul contracts I could close out in the time frame of and not set in that location for another 6 months. There were some other things I could go do in the meantime that was higher in line for me to do that I might not have that, you know, time to do later. But you might just get a whiff of something. You know, you might just think all of a sudden, yeah, this isn't right. And then it might leave. You know, that thought might just leave and you might not think about it. You get into something else and then it'll come back around again. And that's sort of the same thing as in a human consciousness dreaming about something happening. In higher consciousness, you just might get it. You're kind of going to get flush with it, and you're just going to know. It's more of a knowing, but we kind of can pay a little more attention to it because it happens in our waking state. We tend to discount, especially in our human consciousness, our sleep state. We tend to discount that all the time. We tend to think it's not important, you know. But the higher in consciousness we go, the more we know how pivotal that state is. How everything we see in that state is teeing up new realities. Everything we see in that state is happening somewhere. So just kind of be aware of what you feel comes through. Be aware of where you see yourself going. And it might not be now. Normally it's not right now. Normally you might have 2.5 years to prepare for something. But another reason for that is to start preparing for it. You know, we don't want to get caught with our energetic panties down, in a sense. We don't want to get caught where we're trying to transition a reality and we haven't done anything. And sometimes there's more to do than we think. And sometimes there's a lot more to do. We can do the physical stuff. Like if you know you're going to be leaving, and you know you're going to be maybe traveling for a while, or you're going to pare down to something smaller for a while, you know, getting rid of a lot of your furniture, paring down a lot of your stuff. That's kind of what I was going through. One thing I didn't do when I look back on closing without realities, I should have been doing more energetic stuff, even though I thought I was. I didn't realize the immensity of the cords of attachment I had to the area. And that was kind of the one thing that kind of got me. You know, so I kind of was rushing in the end, trying to make sure everyone was okay with me going and not really focusing on some other stuff I had to focus on. But that wasn't so much that they were okay with me going. That was I wasn't okay with me leaving them. And that was more, it's my stuff, you know, that was my stuff. I had not resolved that. So I was waiting to the very end to try to resolve that, and then everything kind of collapsed on me a little bit. So I'll be a little more aware of that next time, but that is how we learn. We learn by doing that. We learn by going through those types of things. You know, we learn by checking out, you know, maybe looking at an area, thinking about an area. Is that an area I want to go to? Maybe it is for a minute, then maybe it's not. Maybe it's aligned in that frequency you're looking at or feeling in that moment, then it's not anymore. You're going to get these flushes that come in because you're going to hit higher consciousness spaces during the day. Kind of like you're going to almost touch your future self. And they're going to say, yeah, you're going to be leaving soon. So just start getting ready. You start, even if in that moment you don't even know physically what to do, and that's okay, start energetically preparing. Start saying, okay, things are going to shift. I need to start getting ready for that shift, because we're the ones that are going to hold that back. That's why things move so slow in our human consciousness, in our human realities, because our human consciousness is so slow. You know, it doesn't want to see this stuff. It thinks it's a victim to everything that happens. It doesn't realize it's all been pre-planned and planned out so many years ahead of time, that by the time it actually happens, that it's, I don't know what word I want to use. I'm trying to think of what word I want to use here. It's already been planned out. We've already agreed to it. We've already kind of taken the oath to do it. So there's really no getting out of it. But as humans, we kind of don't like the way certain things happen. We don't like the way things get packaged. We kind of want it a certain way. You know, we want it our way. We don't want it to be a different way, because we want it to be the human way. But the human way, I will guarantee you, is not the soul aligned way. And that's when you start trying to align your life on a soul level, why that stuff doesn't make sense when you look at it from a human consciousness. And that's why human consciousness looks at it and it doesn't make any sense. Because, well, none of this makes any sense anymore. And it's not. Human consciousness is not going to understand living a higher consciousness existence, and higher conscious existence is going to look at a human existence and go, that doesn't make any sense to me. Because you're coming at it from completely different frequencies. So as you continue to close out 2022, because you will still be doing that, you'll be wrapping certain things up. I know I've got one thing that's kind of a holdover from last year that I got to wrap up. You'll start getting into 2023. You're always going to be wrapping stuff up and bringing new stuff in, embodying in aspects, and you know, starting to, you know, merge with new aspects of yourself. Look at the people around you. Notice when they start to shift. I was talking to someone today, and there was a comment made, and I think I made the comment where, yeah, you kind of get to this, you're in a place and you always kind of start seeing, you see the same people all the time. And as humans, we kind of look at that as, oh, it's just the place, not understanding when you look at it from a higher consciousness perspective, it's because of the density we hold. We're kind of attracting the same people. Yeah, we can shift our consciousness, we can shift our vibration and get a different aspect of them, but that might not be the one they can hold. And it still might feel like we keep playing out the same things with the same people. We keep seeing the same people. Some of it goes back to the density of the area. Everyone's kind of in that place because they hold a certain density of the area. What you might find is even when you move to a lighter area, I went from a dense area to a lighter area. But it's taken my body about 2.5 months to go through the emotional clearing of that. And then I had a very physical clearing a couple weeks ago. And I'm still kind of continuing to clear that. And I would still kind of go back to that dense area to, in my human mind, visit people. But in my higher consciousness mind, you know, I also understand I'm going back there to continue to break out any density I had that in the body that matches the density of that place. Because there's still somewhere in the body, I still have that density that has to be broken up. So if you go back to that denser location, that's why a lot of those people will kind of go back to a place that used to be for a while. And then eventually you kind of settle out of that. You go back to that lower, we're going to just go lower, higher for a minute. You know, I don't like to do that, but we're going to do that here. You go back to that lower density place and it starts to shake loose more of that density that's still held in the cellular body. You know, that's the hardest thing to clear. That's where humanity keeps everything anchored in a sense. You have so much stuff anchored in your body. That's why the collectives have to start to clear certain things before us as individuals can move through a different part of our ascension process. Because until the collectives clear something, it's still anchored in our body. So that's why we can complete things on a micro level, but we can't really do the macro level until the collectives move through. That's why 2022 was such a big year for a lot of people who've already done a lot of the journey individually, and then the collective started moving more toward ascension, higher consciousness. Then we can then go back. Sometimes we go through stuff again, but from a different perception, because we're clearing as the collectives clear. But we kind of know that. Sometimes we know that, sometimes we don't. Usually we know that after the fact that, oh, that's what I was doing. I was clearing because it was still in my body, because the collectives were clearing. It's a very similar thing with the density. You're going to clear, you're going to come back to the higher So what I have noticed myself doing is going back to the denser location for a couple of days, coming back to the lighter vibration and continuing my clearing process. And I've also noticed my enjoyment of the denser place, physical place, has started to diminish as my body has kind of lightened up. That I don't enjoy it as much. It feels off, you know, because now my body's setting at a higher frequency. I'm in the mountains. The mountains are higher frequency just because it's higher up. It sounds kind of funny, but it's kind of how it works. It's still higher up. So it's just, and it's not as many people around. It's kind of very deserted compared to where I used to be, in a sense. So just look at your patterns. Look at what you're doing. Look what you're gravitating to. Look about how you feel when you see certain people, when you go to certain places. Look at what you're feeling the inclination to do. It might not be time to do it yet. Normally, when we just first start getting it, it's just to get us prepared for it. And just so we kind of know this is going to come. And we might need to start asking, okay, how much money am I going to need to do this? You know, let me start, you know, socking that away in a sense, collecting that. I don't really like the word saving. That's kind of a human word, but let me start collecting that because I know this is coming and I might be moving around more. Or I might be changing locations, maybe moving the house around. You might actually find yourself moving your house around, moving furniture around, like getting rid of things. That's a big thing people will do to kind of raise the vibration because your energy has to be able to expand out, and it can't expand out when there's a lot of stuff around. So you might feeling the need to kind of declutter and get rid of a lot of stuff. And that's a huge sign you're raising your vibration. So as we have kind of now come to the linear conclusion of 2022, 2023 is going to be a massive year for humanity. 2024, a lot of us have seen as being a more disruptive year for humanity, but this is kind of another, we kind of finished off the whole COVID realities. We had that 3-year stint. To me, now we're starting another 3-year stint. So there's going to be a lot of upheaval and shifts and changes in the next few years as it is just going to continue to get more intense, the more people hold on to the old stuff, the old systems, the old ways, the old kind of linear human existences. It's just going to get harder and harder to hold on to that stuff. And as many of us noticed, as really the collectives noticed over the COVID reality, so many things going on in those realities that we exited during the COVID years, we didn't want to go back to. They weren't as enjoyable as we remembered them being. You know, we kind of go back and we're like, it's not fun anymore. And we're like, what happened? Well, we shifted and we changed. So remember, you're going to be anchoring in 2023, well into 2023. You're going to be clearing, buttoning up 2022, way into 2023. That's okay. That's how we do it. We're doing kind of everything simultaneously. Look at what you feel like you need to finish up. Look at what you know you're going to be starting. Normally we're doing it all at the same time. Normally we have to clear some stuff out to really get into. Normally I don't really feel like my new year starts in a sense until around springtime that year. The rest of it is kind of just buttoning some stuff up, getting some, you might have some energies to work through. You know, you might have some things to kind of piece through. Look at who comes in. Look at when people start exiting. Look at if you're starting to see a different aspect of them. I don't want to make this too long, so I'm gonna end it because I want to shoot a couple of videos. But look at where you're trying to keep realigning something that you can't align. And this is something I did for a while. I did this in the old location I was in for a while, holding on a bit, and I can look back now and see I was holding on a bit. I didn't want to actually have to end the timeline, so I kept trying to shift the timeline around. It's kind of like after a while, you can get away with it for a while, and in a sense, you're kind of buying time. You'll see some people talk about it as buying time. You know, I'm just buying time for the next reality to line up. You're buying time for you to get to a certain place with your body, with your consciousness. You're ready to get to a certain place where other people can come in. You're supposed to be in that next reality with you, where they're prepared for what has to come you know, after. So you're kind of by time. You know, you might get rid of furniture. You might paint. You might get new furniture. You might get a new roommate. You might not have a roommate. You might all of a sudden bring more people in because that's what you feel like you're supposed to do. You might just clear out everything. You know, you go through a lot of different iterations. You might have the windows up more. You might want the windows down more. Usually you might bring plants in. You might have crystals in. You're just trying to kind of make it work. And you're going to see this with the space you live and also with people around you. You're just trying to make it work. You're trying to make it fit. But deep down, you know it doesn't fit. Deep down, you know you're running out of time in a sense. You know, you're running out of, and it's really not so running, you're running out of the timeline is what really we start to do. The place you're in, the people around you, they've all served a purpose. I did a video, I think it was yesterday. I don't remember. I think it was yesterday about regret. And regret about leaving timelines, and if you've done it this way or done it that way, I could have held on to the timeline. You know, I could have made that last longer. I could have, you know, I could have made, you know, I could have held on for a little bit longer. But knowing that if we shift anything in that timeline, that whole thing doesn't play out that way. We don't meet those people. We don't establish those relationships because we would have been in a different reality altogether where they might not even exist. So look at where you're trying to make something fit that's obvious. You just are, after a while we start to get in a rut where we're just rearranging the chairs on the Titanic, and that's what we're doing. We just keep trying to move it around because we don't want to do the hard thing, which is end the relationship, move, sell the house, whatever it is that we see coming, because there's so much fear that goes around the big changes, you know, the big upheavals, the bigger upheavals. And that kind of goes back to what I was talking to earlier about kind of getting, we kind of get the 411 about some of that stuff early, because our future selves, different higher versions of us, higher aspects of us, know that's going to be difficult. That one might be hard for them to swallow right now. They got a lot of fear around that. They got a lot of attachment to this stuff. They got a lot of attachment to these people, to this area, to this house, whatever it is. And trying to shift that might take months for them to work through that. It might take years for them to work through that. So we're going to keep planning that idea now, because get ready. So look at where you're trying to, I've seen a lot of people doing this. I know I did it. I can say I did it multiple times, and sometimes it takes us, it's almost like Britney Spears songs. Oops, I did it again. I did it multiple times in reality. So I am one that can attest to this one. Just keep trying to just rearrange the chairs and see if you can buy yourself another month or another 2 months or whatever to see if something else can align. But when we keep holding on to that old energy, the old stuff, accepting less. And I'm going to do a video around accepting less and why we do accept less. Why we also show up as less in a sense. Why do we give less than we could give? And I don't mean money. It's however we're showing up. You know, why don't we show up and do everything we can do? When are we showing up small? Because we don't want to do that because that's too hard. Or we don't want to assist with that because that goes out of my way. I don't want to have to do that. Where do we take less? In a sense. So look at all of these things. All these things are going to kind of propel you to the next year to really be able to see. And if you're not sure, ask to see and say, look, show me why it's not working. You know, can I realign it? And for a while you can, but what I have found is everything I created in a human consciousness, except one relationship I have with a child, that was because the children energy is normally relationships with animals and children are much purer. Anything I created in human consciousness was not going to survive the realignment to soul aligned realities. It just was not. It was all distorted. There's too much stuff involved. A lot of times it's easier to kind of wrap those things up and go on to a new reality because we can't anchor in the new when we're holding on to the old. I've tried to do it. Doesn't work. Can't do it. Doesn't work that way. I wish it did sometimes. It would be easier for the human if it worked that way, but it doesn't work that way. All you're going to do is bring in the same stuff. You know, it might be shifted a little shape shifting and look a little different, but it's the same stuff. You know, it's not different. It's going to continue to be the same stuff. So I think that just about sums up everything I wanted to say. Let me see if there's anything else I can bring in that might assist. I think that's it. I think that about does it for me tonight. I'm a little bit later than normal, so I think I'm running out of light in a sense. I need to recharge. Don't hold on. If you remember anything from this, don't hold on. Look at where you're trying to hold on. Look at where you're just rearranging the Titanic chairs, thinking that there's some miracle that's going to happen, and all of a sudden this shit's going to be perfect and aligned, when you know it's not going to be. So sometimes we might exit a reality early. I know I decided to exit one early because things do vibrationally change, and there was something else I could go do instead of setting in an area for another 6 or 7 months and then doing a bigger shift. So look at all your options. There's always going to be options. We just sometimes don't like the way they're presented. We don't like the way they look. We don't like the way they are shown to us, you know? So I will draw a card real quick before I go. Ooh, okay. This is about clearing karma. This is actually abundance karma and gifting more, which kind of goes into when we are not showing up. And gifting doesn't have to be money. Most of the time it's not. Sometimes it is. I mean, if you have the means to do that. If you don't have the means to do that, what do you have the means to do? And that's kind of a big question we're all going to be asking ourselves in 2023. What do I have the means to do? Is it just showing up and being kind to people? Is it showing up, and if I have the means to do a lot of money stuff, am I contributing to things that are highest aligned, or am I feeding the old stuff? Am I feeding a lack program in someone else, or am I really assisting? Do I keep spending my energy on people who show up just when they want something, and when we require assistance or you ask for help, they're not there. They're nowhere to be found. And we'll see a lot of that. You're going to be shown a lot of that. Part of that's because we used to be that way. So it's kind of that karmic timeline closing out for us, that karmic loop coming back around to show us. We're kind of completing that whole karmic cycle. When it comes back around, you see something you did once, maybe 15 years ago. And all of a sudden, you see it happen to you, and you're like, oh, yeah, there it is. There's the end. Sometimes it'll come back and slap you in the face very quickly. Sometimes you'll just know. You'll remember something you did 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 2 years ago, and go, oh, yeah, I remember I did the same thing. So sometimes we're showing ourselves that. But gifting does not have to be massive things. We're the gift. Our presence is the gift. And if you're in realities where that is not seen by people, then those are the realities we need to look at. Is it time to realign this? Can I realign it, or is it best to just close it out with love and respect and move on to another one? But our human never believes there's another one. So anytime we catch ourselves saying that or not really believing there's another one, that's our belief and our limitation that keeps the other ones away. We keep ourselves kind of in the muck of the old, and we can't even see the horizon of the new. So, okay, happy 2023.